On every continent, climate destruction is becoming the new normal.
You know we're running out of time.
And wildfires ravaged vast areas of Australia.
You know we need to move faster.
With the hottest ever temperature reading in Antarctica.
And you wouldn't be watching this if you weren't committed to fighting for a livable planet.
The impacts of climate change are intensifying.
But even if governments make the big moves we need on climate, huge corporations won't stop violating human rights and creating more climate chaos as long as there is money to be made. Money is the oxygen on which the climate crisis burns. But following the money also gives us a powerful new way to win.
Before any new coal mine, oil well, or pipeline can be built, fossil fuel companies need to raise money from big finance. Big finance, operating in lockstep with its fossil fuel clients, also makes huge political contributions so they can keep doing business as usual.
When we stop big finance companies from bankrolling fossil fuels, we can cut off the funds for all the new mines, wells, and pipelines.
When we stop the flow of money, we stop the flow of oil, giving us a better chance to stop runaway temperature rise, attacks on indigenous peoples, and environmental injustices, and begin to take our world back from the brink. That's what the fossil finance movement is all about.
The scale of big finance's backing of climate doom is mind-boggling. In recent years, banks alone have dumped trillions of dollars into new fossil fuel projects that our climate can no longer afford. The two biggest investors in the world have poured even more trillions into fossil fuels, making them the biggest owners of climate-destroying companies on Earth. Insurers, long aware of the risks posed by climate breakdown, not only insure coal, oil, and gas projects, but also invest billions of our customer premiums in fossil fuels.
Banks, investors, and insurers. When we focus on these key sectors of finance, we can cut off the money pipeline that's funding climate chaos. Disrupting big finance is one of the most effective new strategies for fighting the climate crisis, and it's working. We've already moved some of the giants of finance towards the world we need, but there is much more to be done. So what are some of the campaigns targeting banks, investors, and insurers? And how can we ramp up the pressure?
Have you got my money? Tell me where's my money? Need to get my money.
Banks have a long history of putting profit over people and the planet. Banks loan money to fossil fuel companies like Exxon or Shell and provide cash for coal mines, tar sands pipelines, and gas projects, pouring trillions of dollars into fossil fuel companies. But movements are rising up to stop them. Here's how.
JP Morgan Chase is the biggest banker of fossil fuels in the world. In the US, people have been targeting Chase and his leadership, building one of the most visible climate campaigns. From local branch protests
Could I talk to a branch manager, please?
to huge days of action, we're already having a big impact.
In 2020, sustained pressure from our movement forced Chase to remove Lee Raymond, former Exxon CEO, from their corporate board.
It's time to dump Lee Raymond. We can get him voted out of power.
Ousting the lead architect of climate denial was a big win. More bank board members, many with direct connections to the fossil fuel industry, must go.
HSBC is one of Europe's biggest banks, with billions invested in fossil fuels every year.
A massive campaign rose up across the UK to challenge them.
We're coming to deliver some coal. We've got a ton of coal here to deliver to HSBC because you're one of the worst banks in terms of investing in fossil fuels.
Protests and arrests at HSBC branches created a firestorm of media attention. Activists also jammed HSBC's PR, pasting over billboards to transform 200 ads in the UK in just one night.
Many of the ad hacks went viral, exposing the bank's real activities and damaging its reputation. The pressure from all sides moved HSBC to agree to many of the movement's demands, including a timeline to get out of coal. A huge victory.
Fossil bank campaigns are growing strong in Canada, Switzerland, France, Germany, Australia, and many more countries. Faced with mounting pressure from all sides, banks are rushing to make what look like climate commitments. But most of these net zero announcements are empty pledges that won't end lending to fossil fuels for decades.
To stop climate chaos, we must force banks to go much faster, freezing any new financing for fossil fuels and investing in solutions instead.
There's about 25 of us inside the Chase Bank.
Movements around the world are ratcheting up the pressure on banks to stop the money now.
Over the last decade, a new kind of investment company called asset managers have quietly built enormous financial and political power by managing other people's money on their behalf. Many of their clients are large institutions, responsible for investing workers' retirement savings in pension plans. The two biggest asset managers, BlackRock and Vanguard, together manage trillions of dollars. And they're growing. If BlackRock alone were a country, it would be the third largest economy in the world.
BlackRock and Vanguard invest a lot of that money in companies that are destroying the planet, from Exxon and Shell to fossil banks like Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan Chase. These investments give them the power to shape what companies do and who runs them. Their oversized power is a big problem, but it also means they can push a company to change business as usual.
When these global finance giants start forcing companies to stop driving the climate crisis, big changes can start to happen fast. Sustained pressure from people-powered campaigns around the world has forced BlackRock CEO Larry Fink to make high-profile commitments to address the climate crisis.
Fossil fuels will not be a good investment. Coal is not a good investment.
While this is a huge win, we need to keep pushing BlackRock to take further actions, ones that cut its massive financing of fossil fuels and drastically lower emissions now. We need to keep building pressure on big investors.
We demand that you recognize your responsibility as a huge shareholder
to stop pouring money into fossil fuel companies and use their power to transition rapidly to a renewable economy.
As they yield, other big investors will have to respond, helping to shift the entire finance industry.
We're turning the spotlight on big investors, demanding they use their financial power, move money out of fossil fuels,
and shift investments to fund a just transition now.
Just like we need insurance for a home or car, every new fossil fuel project also needs insurance. Insurers were among the first corporate giants to start talking about the need for climate action. They have sophisticated climate models that identify risks. They know that by insuring new fossil fuel operations around the world, they're contributing to an uninsurable future with more extreme property and life-damaging disasters.
Yet many continue to choose short-term profit by insuring fossil fuel projects even as they drop coverage for people affected by wildfires and floods. Campaigns targeting insurance companies have popped up all over the world and are chalking up impressive wins. Under increasing pressure, dozens of global insurers now have policies to restrict support for coal, and many are limiting insurance for tar sands oil.
Lloyd's of London, the world's largest insurance market, insures 40% of the world's fossil fuel projects and specializes in insuring complex and controversial projects. In 2020, under intense pressure from activists, Lloyd's adopted a game-changing market-wide climate policy. And in 2021, Swiss Re, a giant that insures other insurers and sets global standards, began a complete phase-out of coal across all lines of business. But many of the worst firms, including American giants Liberty Mutual and AIG, are still insuring fossil fuel projects all over the world.
And all major insurers, including firms that have ended support for coal, are still insuring oil and gas. To stop climate chaos, the entire insurance industry must rapidly phase out its support for fossil fuels. We're badgering insurers everywhere they go, forcing companies to stop covering climate-damaging projects and start protecting people and our planet now.
Banks, investors and insurers. In each of these three key sectors of big finance, we're starting to win. People power is pushing the richest, most powerful companies in the world to make big changes. Here's what we've won so far.
Over a dozen major insurers are now refusing coverage to the tar sands industry.
BlackRock has made climate its #1 public priority 2 years in a row.
In 2021, due to shareholder pressure, HSBC agreed to a timeline to finally stop funding coal. Imagine the power we can build if more and more people around the world bring the fight for climate justice directly to the doors of big finance.
Demanding they stop destroying our world for profit and invest instead in a just transition to renewable energy.
Imagine what's possible when finance works with people to help create a world of promise and hope instead of tragedy and despair.
This is the world we are all fighting for.
Using the lever of finance, we can win the world we all need together.
Have you got my money? Tell me where's my money? Need to get my money. Better have my money. Have you got my money? Tell me where's my money? Need to get my money.